Welcome back to My Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. Shall we see what's going on our lovely little island of Fawnhollow today, where I said yesterday I would talk about A Way Out today, because that is a game that me and Benedict had finished playing over the weekend by Take-Two Interactive, is that right? I'm going to just check out really quickly before I forget about it, and it's the precursor to It Takes Two, which is, I spelled A Way Out horribly wrong. I put a Q out. That's not at all how you spell that. I know it's published by EA. Who made it? Who made it? Hazelight Studios, never mind. Wait, who's Take-Two Interactive? What do they make? Take-Two Interactive. So this is a bit... hello everyone. Right now in Fawnhollow, it's 3:31 PM on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. Now today's announcements, we have a visitor staying at the campsite. Oh, how lovely. Oh wait, we have a GTA people, right? Yeah. Well, we got some publishers underneath them. Okay, well, that's not what I meant. Yeah, so, sorry, A Way Out is the precursor to It Takes Two, which is, you know, another sort of, well, not another, it was the, not the original, because the one before that, I guess, was Brothers, but that wasn't, I suppose, necessarily you had to play with two people, that was, you could play by yourself. It Takes, so, A Way Out, I keep calling it Takes Two, is very much with two people. Tell me, dear, what did you have for dinner last night? Will you have it again tonight? Can I have some? I'll bring my own plate. It smelled so good. Biscuit. Sure, biscuit, why not? Yes, so it's a precursor to It Takes Two. Well, not really precursor, it's just maybe by the same publishers or developers, but their previous game, and it's not related story-wise at all. In fact, it's a completely different world. So where It Takes Two was like a story about some people going through divorce, and yeah, let's just leave it at that. They're going through a divorce. A Way Out is about two people, Leo and Vincent, who have been sent to jail. Leo being some sort of person who's dealt with criminal activity a lot before, you know, like trading stuff on the black market, I guess a bit of like heists, a bit of robberies and that sort of thing. And Vincent being, he was like a businessman, a banker or something, who got involved with a criminal underbelly because he did like money laundering or something and got to jail, and it turns out they meet each other just sort of by chance in the story, which, you know, it kind of has to happen. You might be like, it's a bit too coincidental, but it happens in the story because otherwise the story wouldn't happen, I suppose, in the first place. By the way, spoiler warning for like all of A Way Out. So if you haven't played this old game, which is fantastic by the way, go pick it up with a friend if it's on sale right now. Is the Steam Summer Sale still going on? If it is, go ahead, pick it up, play it with a friend. It's about 6 hours long. You can do it. If you're really committed, you can do it in one day, but we didn't. We did it over 2 sessions. It's really fun. What was my overall rating? Somewhere between a 6 and 7 out of 10, I think. And bear in mind, my rating, I actually use a proper 1 to 10 scale rather than having, like most current ratings where they use the 6 to 10. 6 to 7 is pretty good. I would put that in a good category. As opposed to, you know, 5 and below, where it'd be like an average to bad. Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's enjoyable. I don't think it's perfect by any means, and there's definitely some things wrong with it, which we'll get into. But yeah, I'm sort of trying to give you a plot of exactly what's going on. And they sort of become buddies eventually, and then decide that working together is probably the best way out of here, and that they have a plan to break out of prison, and then eventually they break out. And it turns out that their motives for breaking out is both motivated by the hatred of this one person called Harvey, because Harvey framed Leo for like or made Leo his fall guy basically for this robbery they did on this very special black gem. And then Vincent hates. Are you really saw that? Okay. Vincent hates Harvey because Harvey ended up killing his brother. Essentially is what happened. So it's like, okay, now they're together, they're motivated, whatever. They had to go through a series of things where it's just like finding out where Harvey is, and then, you know, eventually trying to kill him, and that sort of thing. Along the way, you meet both their families, kind of. Each of them has a wife, or one has a girlfriend and one has a wife, or maybe they're both wives. I don't remember. And they, Leo has a son called Alex, like a 10-year-old boy, and then Vincent's got a child on the way. And you know, you meet them, like on one point you go to Leo's family just to make sure they're right. I can't remember. No, you You went there to find out where Harvey was, or to find out where someone else was, to find out where Harvey was, something like that. I can't remember. And then Vincent is like, his child is being born, so they go to the hospital, that sort of thing. Eventually, they make it. So yeah, reiterate, spoiler warning. I am going to spoil the entire game. They make it to Harvey's place, and they have a duke out with all the people, and they kill Harvey. And they get the gem back, and it's all good. The plan went smoothly, and then an interesting thing that we did in A Way Out is they start out with this cutscene of the two chatting in an airplane, which takes place in the future, and then it jumps back to flashbacks of them getting all the events that lead them up to the airplane, and the airplane is returning from Harvey's secret hideout in Mexico back to America, successfully killing him and retrieving the jewel. And at that point, it's like, oh, they're all really buddy-buddy with each other, and it's all great. And then the plane lands, and big spoiler warnings for a final time, because this is a big plot twist, which I'll be honest, I'm not sure I particularly see coming, but some people said apparently it was telegraphed. I'm not entirely sure how. But it turns out Harvey was an undercover cop. Sorry, not Harvey. Vincent was the undercover cop the entire time, and was basically trying to catch Leo and enact his revenge on Harvey while also retrieving the jewel. And Vincent's friend, Olivia, Natasha, I can't remember her name, something like that, who was a pilot who flew them to Mexico and flew them back, was also a cop, and then they land them as the police officers, and then the chief is like, good job, Vincent, you got him. And then Vincent just goes, sorry Leo, it's nothing personal. And then Leo, obviously being incredibly betrayed by someone he thought was his buddy and his like partner in crime throughout this entire thing, betrayed him just like this, and you know, didn't want to obviously go back to prison. In a rage, you know, like held Vincent hostage and took him on a car. There's basically this chase sequence of Vincent, who I was playing, trying to catch Leo, who Benedict was playing. It was pretty cool, and I'm going to lay this out very clearly. Conceptually, this is a really cool idea, in my opinion, to have a thing where you build up the entire game is just you two basically being the best of friends, like helping each other out, like strong co-op elements, and you see their chemistry sort of grow between them, and then eventually flipping it on its head, being like, okay, now you have to fight each other for a common cause, of that sort of thing. I will say, execution-wise, didn't hit me quite right, I'll be honest. But in concept, this is a really cool idea, and I'm really surprised not more games have done this sort of thing before. The closest as we were here has done something like this, where only one of you can make it out in the end, essentially. So one of you has to give up their life, so the other person can make it out, which is nice. But it's not like a particularly story-driven game. We were here; it's much more atmospherically, like ambiently story-driven, I suppose. Where environmental clues is really what draws the story, and you had to make your own assumptions of what's going on. So it's not quite the same thing. But this was really cool in like a story-driven game. So then eventually is a chase sequence, and then it's like a shootout between them, and then one person has to basically kill the other in the end. You might ask who won out of us two, and Benny won. I would say, I feel like, because we were playing over remote play, Steam Remote Play, instead of downloading the client, because I didn't realise there was a client for it until I checked, like, when just about as we were about to start playing. I was like, maybe there's an actual client for this, was I meant to download this? I was like, oh, there is, but it's like 20 gigabytes, so I didn't download it. So I was like, let's just do it over remote play, it's probably not too bad. It wasn't great, because Benedict's internet is not amazing, but it's good enough, like, because the crux of the game is a lot of it is just quick time events, which I had plenty of time for, and just walking about, which if it stutters, who cares? There's a decent amount of stuttering. A weird thing is the game sort of randomly delves into racing and like shooting aspects, like action aspects in game. I will say I don't think it does it particularly well. It does it passably, to say the least. Because you're also quite slippery. I will admit it probably didn't help that I was lagging. There was a bit of like a PowerPoint presentation going on, and sometimes, especially during the most intense parts where the connection between us wasn't so strong. That's not a knock on Benny, before you ask, no. It's just an unfortunate situation, and definitely I probably should have just downloaded a client so we could play it over the two clients instead of having to do it over remote play like that. Lesson learned. Oh well. What was I going to say? Yeah, but it delves into these like racing element games, which is okay. The controls are a bit slippery, I think, but also these shooting element games where it used to be quite early on in the game. It would be like me as Vincent driving and Leo on the back shooting, which is fine. It's normally a bit backwards to how me and Benny normally do it, so it's weird we don't get a choice, I suppose, because normally Benedict drives and I shoot, not because I'm particularly better at shooting or something, but Benny likes to drive and I don't, and Benny is certainly better driving me. Both in real life and in games, but you know, it was an interesting change up. And then, especially towards the infiltration and Harvey's things, it was basically just like a weird third-person shooter thing, which was okay. It wasn't like particularly like crunchy shooting gameplay or anything like that, or in depth. It's like, it was in fact kind of, if it came out as a shooter game, about was like, if you took a shooter portions out of a game and released it as a shooter game, I'd be like, this is kind of bad for a shooter. But in the context of story, I guess it's fine, because this is meant to be a narrative-driven game. But it was weird how the entire final section was based entirely, like, it was just based entirely off of the shooting aspect, which only really cropped up within like the last couple of hours in the game, which is weird, especially because it was such a quick time event-heavy game at the beginning, and then in much more of an exploration, sort of like walking around sort of game. It's just a bit weird. I will say, I probably would have given Benny a better run for his money if it didn't lag so much, but it was unfortunately, it was nearly impossible for me to hit Benny. I had to just like wildly shoot, and I'm sure, you know, it's a sort of situation. I don't be like, oh, come on, Benny, or like, oh, I'm salty over the fact I lost. Because, as I say before, I'm not particularly competitive. It doesn't really matter who wins in the end. I'm just sort of like, it didn't really feel very climactic, so I was just, throughout the entire finale, I was just going like, I can't actually shoot you. And Benny was just like, I don't want to obviously just take this easy win, just like that. It feels very unsatisfying, and it's not meant to be the climax of the combative battle that between friends and equally matched opponents who have been by each other's side the entire way, but suddenly having to turn each other on, having to suddenly turn on each other towards the end. It is just like a bit of an anticlimax, which has happened before. And I didn't even realise Sahara congratulates you when you catch insects, which happened before in games. Like our Divinity like finale was kind of soured because it turns out the vampire, if you make a pact with them, sorry, Divinity Original Sin 2 spoilers if you haven't played through that. Finale, there's a vampire, if you've made a pact with them, and then it ended up with Ali basically being dead for most of the finale, so that was kind of, you know, not fun for him, which is fair enough. But it happens, you know, what can you do? This was basically on us for not being like, we should probably play with a client, and especially me not speaking up, being like, oh, you know, let's play with a client, this is kind of laggy for me. But to be fair, there was not really much of an indication that it would actually matter. That I would have to have like a non-laggy client or that sort of thing, because the quick time events are insanely easy. Like most of the events in the game are insanely easy. It doesn't matter if you're lagging, because it's not like you're playing StarCraft or League of Legends or anything where that sort of thing matters. So I was like, it's not going to be a big deal, and then suddenly it became a big deal, and it's like, okay, we couldn't really have seen this coming, so what can we do? So yeah, in our story, Leo ends up killing Vincent. It's heartbreaking and that sort of thing, and you get an epilogue, and it's nice. Do different stories, and you might ask what happens. Vincent, as in his dying breath, he was like, can you give us a letter to Carol, which is a letter that Leo recommended Vincent write, because Vincent's having a bit of a tenuous relationship with his wife. So and then Vincent delivers a letter anonymously, and then, like, you know, goes back to his family with a like fresh chance in life. I thought, you know, despite the fact our finale was a bit weird, because it wasn't really the shootout it should have been, I thought that was a really nice ending, and I was like, you know what, this is a really nice sort of like character arc, kind of for both of them, and also because at that point I was kind of like, I guess I felt a bit bitter at Vincent, being like, I can't believe this game made me just like play someone who was going to betray Leo this entire time, and then just like sprung it on me. It's like, I don't feel good about that sort of thing. So I was like, you know what, I'm fine with Leo getting his own happy ending, and unfortunately Vincent dies. I didn't exactly want Vincent to die. I wanted them both to sort of live and go their own separate ways, but obviously you can't have that as an ending, because that sort of like takes away from the ending. We watched Vincent's ending. Vincent's ending is very unsatisfying, because I don't understand why Vincent even kills Leo in the first place, seeing as, you know, he's a cop, and he could have just like shot him in the leg and like, or knocked him out and then just put him under arrest, but decides to shoot him in the chest for that sort of thing. And then there's no obviously exchange of letter, because there's nothing that goes the other way. They just reach out their hands and handshake, and then Vincent just goes and tells Leo's wife, oh, you know, he's dead, I had to shoot him. And then he gets kicked out, and is just like, in my opinion, considerably less satisfying than the other endings. pretty glad we got this ending rather than the other one. And then A Way Out wraps up, and all in all, it was a fun experience. You can sort of see where they learn from A Way Out and put what they learn into It Takes Two, because there's a lot of times in A Way Out where you can just sort of mess about. Like, you go exploring someone else's house, you can like play the piano, you can try on clothes, you can like play horseshoes, play these mini games with each other, which they took and they went, alright, people love this probably in A Way Out, let's just do it all the time in It Takes Two, because in It Takes Two there's so many things to mess about with, which is by far and away definitely the favourite part of a game I thought with when I was playing with Benedict. I don't know if it was his favourite part of the game, but with tons of stories and when we played in mini games together, and it was just like a ton of fun, like messing about and exploring and with all these fun gimmicks. And I suppose part of that's also to do with the fact that It Takes Two is a very, very light-hearted sort of game, you know. It's very silly, it's very whimsical in the first place. It's like, it could be a kid's game. It probably is, like, for all ages. A Way Out, very much not the case. It's very much a mature game, probably. Maybe even adult only. Yeah, probably not adult only. I don't know when they draw the line of that sort of thing. But yeah, it's got very like a darker feel, A Way Out, which is fair enough. It's got a darker tone in the first place. So then we go on to the narrative portion of A Way Out, because that's one of the main selling points. I think the main selling point is a co-op element and being able to play with your friend and go on an adventure like that sort of thing. The other element being what was I thinking? The narrative part of it. Narratively, it's it's not, I'm not going to say it's a greatest story, but it's not terrible. Like, some people think it's utterly atrocious. I don't think it's atrocious, but I feel like it's strange, because the first part is all about a prison break, which, from what I've read from other reviews, and I thought, like, the prison break, like, narrative was actually really cool, and it was a really, like, probably the best part of the entire game, to a certain extent. I've later been told, or not been told from what I read in reviews online, it's basically directly copied from Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption is like almost exactly the same sort of story and beats and that sort of thing. I can't vouch for that because I haven't seen Shawshank Redemption. I know, shock horror, I haven't seen another popular movie. But alas, that's just how it be sometimes. I have just realised that I did connect with my Switch to the internet, but we didn't get a Nintendo letter or anything like that, so I wonder what was checking the mailbox for every single time. I forgot to change clothes, that's what I was meant to do. What was the thing? And then, yeah, but then afterwards it sort of becomes strange. It sort of I would say becomes the narrative of like a B-roll action movie. Wait, what? What's it? A B something, not B tier. Like a sort of really cheesy, corny action buddy cop sort of movie. You know, like Bad Boy style. But I also haven't seen Bad Boy, so I don't know if that's true or not. It's kind of cheesy. I'll be honest, the narratively is a bit all over the place and the pacing's a bit strange. It's not atrocious by any means, it's just like ranges from 4 to 6s, I'd say, out of 10s in that sort of category over the last two acts. And the last act I think is very weird, and then it gets obviously into the plot twist where it's just like, oh, Harvey was not on Leo's side at all. Harvey was just trying to get his revenge. He's actually on the side of law and is here to arrest Leo. I think, as I said before, it's really cool to turn the two players who've been co-op the entire time into like a competitive thing. Is it exactly something to my taste? No, not really all the time. I much prefer co-op over competitive, but every once in a while, and where I think it's justified, I think it's a really cool sort of thing to just like put on the audience. I think in this case it was not earned. Not entirely, because basically it's not at all telegraphed, in my opinion, that Harvey's not on Leo's side, apart from the fact that I guess Harvey's a bit more stoic and seems to know a lot about what's going on in like criminal underbelly and how to do things, despite being like a banker, which, you know, is a sort of like lampshaded, I assumed. So I was like, oh, whatever. It feels like a twist almost for the sake of being a twist, because they were like, how do we turn them against each other? This would be a cool way. But it doesn't feel right, because throughout the entire game, it's implied that Harvey is going secret undercover into prison to do it, and he's on the police force. So, but you also like run from the police and fight the police and kill the police quite a lot of the time throughout the entire game. So it's sort of like, oh, did these police not know what was going on? I guess. So like, what would have the plan been if Harvey died or something, or you know? And I guess it's just not like, oh, Harvey's just killed like a load of people with Leo and that sort of thing, and had to commit robbery. Oh, I guess it's all fine because it was in the name of getting this crystal and enacting revenge on his dead brother. It's sort of just like a... It doesn't quite rub me the right way. It's just weird. Yeah, as I say, I feel it feels unearned. The sort of plot twist in the end to me. Where, when it happened, I was just like, to Benedict, I was like, okay, 1, I didn't see that coming at all. 2, what? It's just a bit weird, is how I'd put it. And perhaps part of me is just like, oh, I want the happy ending where we're all like good friends and it works each other out. But no, that's not necessarily true. I think it's really cool that they turn it against each other. And I talked about it multiple times before. I like melancholic endings. I like hard decisions. I like things like that. The things that were like heart-wrenching. But this just made me go, it's just a bit weird. No, it's not meant to be a knock on developers or a narrative team writing at it, because I think they had a really cool idea, and they definitely have done something about 10 times better than I could ever do. I absolutely want to establish that. But, you know, from a consumer perspective, I guess this is just what I thought of it was just something. It's a bit strange. It didn't sit quite right with me. A lot of other people said the dialogue, they hated the dialogue in the game about something. I found it fine. I didn't find it bad. I didn't find it amazing. I found it amusing. I'll certainly say, but yeah, I will say the character development is not great in the game, and I found the characters amusing, but I didn't like particularly fall in love with the characters or anything, which I think was a common trend I talked about in It Takes Two. The characterization is not very good. In It Takes Two, I talked about is that I didn't actually like the character. I found them okay, and then I disliked them, and then I found them okay again at the end, rather than like particularly loving them or liking them a lot all the way through. I found them mostly amusing, is what I say. And that's the same case over here. Like, I found Leo and Vincent, they have a bit of banter back and forth between them. I like Leo more than Vincent, I would say, perhaps because Leo's got a lot more character going for him, and Vincent's just sort of like stone-faced, stone cold. He doesn't really have much of a... I don't really know what his character is, apart from he's the serious one. But also, like, I don't know. Perhaps it's a bit ironic me saying that, because it's a bit closer to what I'm like than what Leo's like. But yeah, gameplay wise, I also say, I mentioned a bit before, the shooting, the driving part elements of the game, I'm just like, they weren't greatly executed, but they were okay. There's a huge complaint I see is a huge reliance on quick time events for gameplay, which, you know, is contentious as well. It's something that's very David Cage Quantic Dream sort of thing they do, like in Heavy Rain and oh, hold up, we've got a conversation. Hey Mary, you like cooking, right? Do you think you could cook for me sometime? Huh? Yeah, I'm always coming up with new recipes. You want to taste test an original? I call it baked salmon, Fawnhollow style. Oh wow, yeah, what's in it? Okay, I make an applesauce, pour it on some baked salmon, and hit it with a bit of peanut brittle. Peanut brittle? I haven't made it yet, but I think it's gonna rock. Apples and peanut brittle on baked salmon? Is that really gonna taste good? I think you can have an applesauce and baked salmon. It might be okay. It's a bit strange, perhaps, but I'm not an expert about something. No idea, but I think it's gotta be better than my Caesar salad. Now that was a disaster. So, you free next Saturday? Sorry, I think I'm gonna be busy, hiding from you. Yeah, gameplay wise, the shooting and driving elements, it's okay. Quick time events, oh yeah, controversial. Not too many people like them. Fair, I think. Quick time events is not really much of a substitute for gameplay, but it's sort of like what people use in narrative games to, one, make it more accessible to people who want to play narrative games but don't necessarily care too much about intensely mechanical gameplay. But also it's like I don't know. I'm not going to say it's an excuse per se, because it does look cinematic a lot of the time, but it is not very interesting. It's not engaging. As I say, it's an interactive movie you're playing with, except for the interactive part is you have to press a button at sometimes, which is not that interactive. I suppose is exactly how I put it. So gameplay wise, could be better. But my favourite parts of the game was certainly when you sort of like walking, well, apart from the prison break, because I thought the prison break thing was really cool. They have a lot of times, if you don't know, the game is always in split screen, even if you're playing like online over each other, and I think we do a lot of cool stuff with that. Like there's one portion when you're trying to break out of a jail cell, and one person has to look out basically as the other basically does quick time events to like unscrew their toilet from the wall and go behind their prison cell or that sort of thing. It's pretty cool, you know. Sometimes I guess part of it is ruined because you can kind of like look over to exactly what they're doing. It's not quite got the asymmetrical puzzle elements which We Were Here does, where you don't actually have the other person's information. It's just because you technically have access to it at all times. But it's nice to sort of like role play and get into that sort of feeling of it, I'd say. But still, what was I going to say? I forgot. Yeah, they got cool things with that, like messing around with the camera and that sort of thing. Like focusing on one, focusing on the other, and then you can both do your own sort of thing and walk around. You got nice little mini games which you can play with each other. That sort of thing, like Connect 4. Played against Benedict. I won that, by the way, so, you know, take that, Penny. You might have won the story, but did you win Connect 4? You had horseshoes, you have darts and that sort of thing. Which is, yeah, they put that a lot into It Takes Two, which I think suits It Takes Two better. These sort of like mini games, because A Way Out ends up being like sort of all over the place, sort of like atmosphere wise. I suppose it's meant to be like this dark and gritty sort of real life story about criminal underbelly, not criminal underbelly so much, but criminals on the run from the law and that sort of thing, and like using whatever methods. Like there's this method where to get information out of someone they had to basically torture him, but it's a very comical sort of torture, and I guess that's the point, because you'd feel like it's meant to be a very sort of dark and gritty game, and especially the first act gives you that impression, but then it just becomes weirdly like not weirdly comical. Like I actually appreciated it being quite comical, because I thought me and Benny were quite light-hearted when we were playing, so we sort of did silly stuff like that sort of thing, like when we were torturing Benny found someone's wallet, it was like, oh, what, I'm gonna take all your money, and we just like pretended we were going to threaten him by like chucking his wallet at him, and stupid stuff like that, you know. It definitely added to the atmosphere, but it was a different atmosphere. It was like a bit of a sharp turn, I suppose. I feel like there's more I want to say about Way Out, but it's really hard for me to think about it. Just like that. But basically, all in all, I want to say it's a cool concept, which I think we improved in It Takes Two. I don't think it's perfect in It Takes Two, mind you. I feel like narratively leaves much to be desired. It's sort of just like, okay, it's satiating the narrative and the story in both games, but it's not like mind-blowing, which is strange because I feel like it's meant to be a big part of it, especially a Way Out. Probably less so in It Takes Two. Oh, you know, another thing is in It Takes Two, the movement, the control feels really nice. Like everything's so fast, it's fluid, or jumping and the animations and that sort of thing. A Way Out feels much more stiff when it comes to that. But you know, it is an older game, and it was like not first game. The game before Brothers, so you know, obviously they probably like expanded and learned things from then. It's quite short, I suppose. 6 hours is not particularly long, while It Takes Two is like 14 hours or perhaps even longer. We didn't even do everything in It Takes Two, so yeah. So yeah, that's basically our experience of A Way Out. Where I wonder how much of my like rating on it has been knocked down just because the ending felt really. One, the plot twist, and two, like the fact that we did not play. I didn't play on a client. We played over a remote play that it ended up making the final sequence kind of bad. I will say with Steam controller, there's one part when you're on a helicopter. I'm on a helicopter and I'm trying to shoot Leo, Benny, who's down on a boat and he's driving. But for some reason, like you had to aim with the. I'm using the Steam controller. You had to aim using the touchpad. Fair enough. That's how it works in novice shooters. Steam controller. For some reason the sensitivity there was so incredibly low, I had to like swipe up about 20 times to move just a tiny distance on the screen, which made it really, really difficult to hit and shoot. And then like he ended up crashing his boat anyway into explosives in a narrative set, so it was just like a okay, what was the point sort of thing. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there. I think It Takes Two did it better, where they made competitive elements in the minigames rather than necessarily overarching narrative at the end, and the narrative is them coming together. Questionable story in It Takes Two, whether the message is something that you want to teach children, that parents should stay together just because of the children, or like you can solve any domestic dispute and any potential divorce just by, you know, talking about it, which is not necessarily true, but hey ho, here we go. I don't think we have quite enough time to sell this, so we'll sort of just round this up here. It's A Way Out. I would recommend playing it, you know, if you like co-op games with friends. If you've got someone to play with, by all means, give it a shot. It's really fun. It Takes Two, I will say, is probably better though, in my opinion. But A Way Out might be more of your atmospheric, aesthetic thing, which you prefer. So I'll leave up to you. Anyway, if you have been watching, thank you very much. If it's been Animal Crossing New Horizons, I've been Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares are greatly appreciated. Join me Darling Discord and follow me on Twitter down below. I hope we can see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.